When you accept an identity, a signature, or an attribute from an eIDAS wallet, what exactly are you risking, and how do you stay in control? In this module, we'll turn vague trust into concrete risks, controls, and assurance that you can actually govern in day-to-day operations. As a relying party, your business is no longer the sole source of truth about a user's identity or intent. You now depend on ecosystems, EUDI wallets, identity providers, and qualified trust service providers to supply verified data and signatures. The strategic shift is that verification moves from your internal silos to these external actors. If the external input is wrong, your decision is wrong. You can't respond with blind trust. You need governance, risk, and compliance controls that explicitly model these eIDAS 2.0 dependencies. When you consume eIDAS Trust Services or EUDI Wallet data, your exposure shows up along three dimensions. Legal risk is about the validity and provability of what you're relying on. If a signature or certificate fails, contracts can be challenged, and regulators may see non-compliance. Operational risk is about continuity. Outages at wallet or trust service providers or cross-border incompatibilities can suddenly block onboarding or critical transactions. Security risk focuses on identity fraud and wallet compromise. The crucial point: third-party risk isn't peripheral anymore. These providers effectively become part of your core attack surface. Let's start with the first major risk for relying parties: misuse of identity data and attributes. Here, the identity itself might look technically valid, but key attributes are wrong, manipulated, or synthetic. Think of a real person with a fake role, address, or company, or a fully fabricated digital persona. If you trust those attributes blindly, you can onboard the wrong party, approve high-risk actions, and expose your organization to fraud, regulatory breaches, and contract disputes. A second critical threat vector is wallet compromise. Even if the EUDI wallet is technically secure, it still lives on a vulnerable device, used by imperfect humans. Malware, theft, or social engineering can give an attacker effective control of the wallet. Once that happens, they can trigger actions that generate perfectly valid signatures. For a relying party, that means apparently legitimate consents, contracts, or account openings that the real user never intended. Now consider the operational side. Imagine your main trust service provider goes down at 10 a.m. on a Monday. Your signing platform can't check revocation lists, so every signature suddenly looks unverifiable. Risk won't let transactions through. Legal won't accept documents, and your onboarding funnel grinds to a halt. The opposite is just as damaging. A glitch incorrectly flags valid certificates as revoked, so you start rejecting good customers. This ecosystem fragility has become one of your core operational risks. Against these risks, your first shield is technical controls that quietly work in the background. Automated validation checks in real time whether certificates and signatures are still trustworthy, so you're not relying on revoked or expired credentials. Tamper-evident logging then captures who verified what, when, and with which result, creating evidence you can rely on later. On top of that, anomaly monitoring highlights unusual patterns that may signal fraud or system abuse. Your second shield is how your process responds when the wallet signal isn't enough on its own. Start with contextual CDD. Don't just trust attributes, cross-check high-risk ones like beneficial ownership against independent data. Then, enforce segregation of duties. The team designing onboarding flows shouldn't be the same team making the final risk decision. That separation reduces both bias and fraud. And finally, design clear exception handling. Define when a case must go to a human, what evidence they need, and how it's documented, so computer says no never becomes your default answer. Resilience and continuity mean assuming wallets or trust services will fail at some point, and making sure your business doesn't fail with them. First, define clear fallback paths. If wallet-based identification is unavailable, what's the backup? That might be manual checks, stepped-up KYC, or temporarily reduced functionality, all pre-approved by compliance. Next, build assurance into your operating rhythm. Regularly review providers against SLAs, certifications, and incident history, and feed the findings into vendor governance. Finally, test reality. Run cross-border and disaster recovery tests, simulate outages, and verify that logs, alerts, and escalation routes actually work end-to-end. To make cyber resilience real under eIDAS 2.0, you need a living risk register, not just a policy document. Treat it as your single source of truth for what can go wrong with wallets and trust services, how severe it is, and who owns fixing it. Each wallet-related risk should be explicitly named, rated, and assigned to a clear business owner who is accountable for monitoring, controls, and escalation. To make eIDAS part of your overall cyber resilience story, don't invent a parallel control system. Plug it into what you already use, like ISO 27001 or SOC2. First, extend those control libraries. Add explicit controls for wallet data validation, signature checks, and event logging. Then involve internal audit early. They should walk through wallet journeys, test signature verification logic, and confirm evidence is captured. And finally, design test scenarios that intentionally break things: cross-border flows, expired certificates, revoked credentials, and downtime of providers. Boards and regulators don't just want to know that you're compliant. They want to see how much risk remains. That means reporting a few clear metrics: how reliable your identity providers are, how well your controls prevent fraud, and how many incidents or blocked attempts you've handled. Your narrative should connect these numbers to one idea: the residual risk of relying on digital identity. Risk appetite is your organization's agreed balance between user experience and security assurance. Under eIDAS 2.0, you can't just chase maximum security or maximum convenience. You need clear rules. Decide where you draw the line between substantial and high assurance, how much fraud loss you can tolerate before adding friction, and in which scenarios qualified electronic signatures are mandatory and cannot be waived, even for VIP customers or urgent deals. You've now seen the main risk scenarios for relying parties and the controls that actually matter: strong validation, good logging, and realistic fallback paths. Your immediate move is a focused gap assessment of today's capabilities against eIDAS 2.0 expectations. Keep the bigger goal in mind: operationalize the regulation, so identity, trust, and resilience become part of your business advantage. eIDAS 2.0 makes one thing crystal clear: your organization, as a relying party, is where trust becomes real. The wallet, the providers, the regulation, all matter, but your controls turn them into reliable decisions. Carry forward 3 questions. Where do we rely on trust? How resilient are those journeys? And what will we improve in the next 90 days?